whatever we have built, I'm afraid, is not a law of nature. Our society is not a law of nature. Nature doesn't care if you have a society or not.
And I wonder, what is wrong with the American society? What is broken as far as you're concerned?
So, I think everything starts with an idea. This idea of a nation state is an idea itself. So, people did fall in love with the idea of America, and a lot of people still do like that idea of America. But that idea of America is different to different people. So if you're living in Texas, your idea of America is different to somebody living in LA or New York, because they are on a different journey, and somebody sitting somewhere in LA is on a different journey because they've met different type of people, their experience is different. So the idea of America needs reinventing. The idea, I'll give you a simpler example. So let's say you have put a building together. Now, you need to repair that building every once in a while because the bonds will start to loosen up, and you need to make sure that there is a continuous care and TLC given to that structure that you built. The same thing is with the idea of America. The same thing is with the idea of UK, for example. The whole Brexit happened because people have one idea of Britain, because they feel that, okay, this is Britain was once Britain. I mean, that's one idea. Great. I and you can have a different idea, but they fully believe that that was the Britain that they want. There are people in the United States who have one idea of America. They feel this is the idea of America. But the society has changed, right? People have changed. There are different type of people who are now in America. There are different type of people who are now in UK. There are different type of Europe has changed, right? The way the demographics has changed. So if all of that is changing, you need to renew that idea. You need to renew the bonds.
Yeah, but that's an interesting one. So you have to renew the idea, which are the narratives, which are ultimately the bonds. And then you see all of a sudden society has evolved, or you just says changed in America, Britain, Europe, but the thoughts haven't. But I always thought it's the thoughts, the ideas, the ideals, the belief system that drives our behavior and hence makes us whoever we become in future.
So, this is interesting. So I will use the analogy of laws of nature. The earth is spinning and we don't care about it because we take it for granted. Now, that is no longer an idea. That is something that you have to take for granted, because without the earth spin, nothing happens, right? So whatever we have built, I'm afraid, is not a law of nature. Our society is not a law of nature. Nature doesn't care if you have a society or not. The collective is not a fact, it's not a law of nature. So it's a construct. It's a construct of a human mind. And a human mind doesn't have the capacity to create something that can last for 1 billion years. It's unfortunate. It's just not possible. We cannot construct a star like sun that will last for 10 billion years. We can create a machine that will last for 100 years and that will fall apart. So human mind, we don't have the capacity. So what we do is we need to have a working idea. A working idea that needs to be open-ended, that needs to be open-sourced, where people can keep changing that. People can keep renewing it. And I can guarantee you 100 years from now, an America of today will look completely different. A UK of today or a Europe of today will look completely different. Just go back in 1900, early 19th century. If you were to say to people that there will be a European Union, they will say there will never be a European Union. We are busy killing each other, right? We want to kill each other, and you're talking about us living together in peace? That's not possible. But it is possible because people changed. People said, no, we want to live in peace. Yeah. And this is where I think European Union got it wrong. It is a very nice brand. It is a very good idea, but the way it was marketed is not right. America is marketed very correctly in a right way. But European Union is not marketed in the right way. And that's where the marketing failed, and that's where the product starts to fall apart, and that's where the idea is becoming restrictive. And people want to go back to their original idea that no, I am a this, or I am a that, and European Union, I cannot identify myself with it. So that is the struggle that we have.
Yeah, and I think the struggle fundamentally is, the introspection or the lack of it. And in your chapter, Meeting People, a long monologue, I got the impression, Sanjeev, you actually don't like people because of your past experiences, maybe also because of some of the traits you discovered in your own journey.
So I think it's some of the traits that I discovered in my own journey. I realized, wow, I can be very vindictive. I can be very discriminating. I can really cause a lot of damage to people. I realized that when I lose a transaction, and I just take it very seriously. So I thought, let's take a step back. When you can do some damage, you want to take a step back. So now I realize, what? How many people do you need to know to live, to exist? Not many. And sometimes what happens is you can get into a networking fatigue. You know too many people, but they don't know you. By exchanging business cards, etc., by exchanging 5 minutes of conversation, you have built nothing. You've just had their contact. You don't get anything out of it. So for me, I encourage myself and people I know that, look, you need to learn to invest yourself wisely in people. And that is very, very important. So any relationship, you need to learn to invest yourself in that relationship. And you need to fully invest yourself in that relationship. So how many people you can invest yourself in? Not everybody. You can invest yourself in literally a handful of people. And those are the people you would kind of grow with. You will allow them to criticize you. You will allow them to point to you and say, no, that is a wrong idea. And you could say, I understand that. So that has been my own journey.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting one, if I may interject there, Sanjeev, because that is, now we're talking personal relationships, people that you are not only honest with, but even bare, where you show your own weaknesses or things that trigger you, and you trust them that you can evolve together. You exchange whatever triggers you, whatever your weakness is, and you grow together. And that is potentially your personal collective. Okay. The other thing, the networking, is more business, which is very much driven by certain objectives.
Yeah. So, now what I do is when I'm looking at a business, this is again part of, you evolve, you learn. Now, when I'm looking at somebody and I see that there is no overall alignment, I simply tell them, look, I appreciate the capital, or I appreciate your offer, but let's not work together. And it shocks people. But I'm very honest with that, because I don't want to take burden. I don't want to carry baggage, because just I want to chase that profit. I want to chase that capital doesn't mean I need to create so much pressure on myself, so much baggage that there will be a lot of conflict. So what happened is, and I can tell you, what happened is you take on those investors, you take on those partnerships, because you think, well, we are focusing mostly on business. You're focusing only on profit. That's what it is. I'll be honest with you. And what happens is, there is, the alignment is only on business. So they could say, well, climate change is just a bogus thing. And you could say, well, it's okay. He doesn't agree, but I think maybe one day he will come around. Or, this is, I can tell people what to wear and all of that, And you could say, no, you shouldn't, but it doesn't matter, So you make those small compromises here, there. Your principle, their principle are not aligned at all. But you keep doing that because you think, your shareholders will be happy, you're delivering good results. But what happens is when the relationship starts to unwind, meaning you get into a bit of business problem, then that business problem gets associated and linked to your principal stances. And then when you break that partnership, it becomes very toxic. You have litigations and all of that. So I want to avoid all of that. I don't want to get into any of those situations. I said, no, I want to invite you into my house. and this is what I'm offering. I don't want you to control me and tell me I will want you to do this. I want you to change the lamp here and there. That won't work for me. But let's agree. Let's agree to know that we will have disagreement, but we will respect each other. And when there is that alignment, you discover that they will support you and you can support them. And I've had partners who call me for relationship issue. And I sometimes joke with them and I say, look, we didn't sign up for all of these things, man. But the trust has developed so much.
Let me quickly interrupt the conversation to say thank you that you are here with me on the channel. If you do enjoy what I'm putting out, the in-depth kind of conversations, then why don't you subscribe and also hit the bell button so I can keep you informed with our newest releases. Thanks for that in advance, and let's get back to the conversation. No, that's absolutely wonderful, and I think to have that alignment or that common ground, saying, okay, these are the kind of rules. This is what you can expect from me, and this is what I can expect from you. I think management of expectation is what is potentially so effective, efficient, or painful if it's done badly. And I think that also plays very well into one thing that you said in your book, that what is being rich? You just posed that question, and for you, being rich is everything but material, but it is the richness of thought, of the way you live your life, of giving, empathy, being there for each other, and that being rich needs also in a way to be redefined for many, many people.
Yeah, I mean, again, as I was saying, the thing is, a lot of people who are rich, there is nothing else apart from being rich. Buying, throwing a party for 500,000 euros, etc. Just an example. I mean, that's what I realized. So what I do is, the question I ask myself is, what are people doing for the society? What are people, how are you contributing? I don't have that question anymore. Why do I exist? Because I know I'm an experiment. So the question I ask myself is, not why do I exist, how do I exist?
Spot on, Sanjeev, exactly. And that is what matters, because we do exist. It's, as you were saying, a haphazard kind of situation of life, but what we make of it is very much up to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think for me at least, that's why I thought I'll put it in a book. That's what I see being rich is, not being, I think the matrix of success is now money.
No,
and we need to redefine that. The matrix of success should not be money. And I'm not saying a lot of people who have money are wrong type of people, not at all. I just think, for the younger generation, it's our responsibility that we need to redefine that, you are successful if you're happy. You're successful if you're a good father. You're successful if you're a good friend. If you're successful if you're a good husband or a wife or, anything. Success doesn't mean that, I have $1 million in my bank account or $100 million in my bank account or $1 billion company, and people don't like me. The guys who work for me don't hate me completely. My friend thinks, oh my God, this is a dishonest person. That is not success. That is creating a lot of collateral damage.
Absolutely. On the other hand, money or wealth can be a wonderful tool. This is all money is, at least for me, with which you can do a lot of good and really, not for that people like you, just simply because making a difference with the means that you have. And if it's not only your personality, but money and wealth as well, that's great. And what you just said earlier on about, the redefinition of things brings me, and the new generation, the next generation brings me to a vital part of our conversation, Sanjeev, and is how can we really use this COVID-19 crisis to create and not just rebuild the good old days we think might have been good or the normal pre-COVID, but what can we really change? What do you think? You talked about redefining the economy. You talked about redesigning the healthcare system as well. Where do you say, let's start with the economy. What do you think are fundamental shifts we should look into, at least, in order to create a more long-term sustainable financial economic system?
I think first we need to start with saying that the stock market is not a reflection of the economy. The stock market could be record high, and there are people on the street, not feeling the impact of it at all. And this is the problem that I encourage my friends. I mean, I come from financial markets, so I know that market. And there is a serious, gap in reality. So you have one reality where you're looking at an index and you think, wow, the world is prosperous, but that world is not prosperous at all. So, and there is a disconnect between the real economy and the financial market now, a serious disconnect. So you have a product called financial market that only works for 5% of the population. 95% of the population just don't like it anymore. So that's why people don't like rich people don't like bankers, people don't like anything because they think, whoa, I don't get any benefit out of it. And then people confuse it with, oh, you guys want to be socialist, you guys want to be communist. Not at all. At the end of it, if I tell people, look, if 20% of the global population was to die because of a pandemic, your economy and the market will more or less collapse. So you got to understand that we have to design a system that works for people. We'll never have a perfect system, but it needs to work better than it is working today. And I think that has to be a collective effort, I feel.
Yeah, and you mentioned there a couple of actually very concrete things, and let me just point them out to our viewers as well, Sanjeev. You talk about we should move away from the metrics of GDP and go to GO, which is the gross output, measuring the total economic activity in the production of goods and services in one financial year would be a better, more inclusive kind of metrics. You also talk about the roles of the central banks, that they should be allowed to create up to 25% of new money if it means that they can help in a specific crisis, and also pass certain funds on, the national crisis funds on, for example, to the IMF. So you're putting a lot into a system saying, okay, we just make it, let's make it more open, more giving, more inclusive, right? If I read it right. But
yeah, correct. That's what I said. So, I'm glad you pointed it out, and thank you for that. So, if we had that system, just imagine if we had that system today, the governments won't have to borrow to break their back. And our next generation after won't be taking the burden of so much of debt. Because if we had that in place, we will be solving that problem. We will easily solve that problem because there will be provisions already in the system. And the government will say to their central bankers, look, this is what we need to do. So there is a crisis, let's fund that crisis.
So it wouldn't impact then the FX values, for example, and inflation with that kind of system?
Not at all, because those are established things, right? Those are things that market understands that you are doing that and there is provision for it. So these are the provisions that already exist in the system. And when there are provisions that already exist in the system, those events happen, you just utilize on those provisions.
Mm-hmm. And the healthcare system, it seems to me, everything needs to be more remote, more digital. Sweat is something that you talked about quite extensively, which made me sweat, which made me laugh, which I thought was interesting. So in terms of healthcare, what can we do better in order to potentially face another pandemic in a better way?
I personally feel, I think there has to be a whole of government approach to healthcare. And healthcare has to become a security issue. Serious security issue, and we see that, right? If you have a virus that is out of control, it is a national crisis. It's a national emergency. So I think various parts of the government needs to allocate some capital, some resource towards making sure the society is safe. So we are talking about cybersecurity, and all of that is fantastic, but people's health is very, very important. And that's why if we put all of the government resources in making sure the society is well taken care of and healthy, we won't need to burn a lot of money. We will be doing much better things with that money.
Yeah, and I think you're so spot on, because if I remember rightly, the reason for the first lockdown during the first part of the COVID-19 pandemic was really, we must not overload our healthcare system, because it's kind of within 5 seconds, it's maxed out. So we have to, we have to keep people at home so they don't shift to unavailable places in the hospitals. And for me, there was kind of a shocking moment de raison, yeah, where where I just thought, okay, what is happening here? Isn't that part of defending your society, not only with some sort of bombs or, as you were just saying, space war issues, but really making sure if something biological warfare was supposed to happen, that a good part of the population can be cared for on a medical level.
And absolutely, you said it. We were asked, the lockdown was imposed to sell the health system. That's what it was imposed for. It wasn't imposed to save people. Let's be honest about that.
Exactly. It's what I think, for the better, for the worse. I might get crucified by our viewers.
No, it's okay. I mean, I want to be very honest with myself. The lockdown was imposed because the health system didn't have capacity. So you were asked to just protect the health system. And that was the right thing to do because you don't have resources. You just have limited amount of resources because we didn't think a pandemic will happen, right? But if you had all of the government, every department of the government prioritizing or at least putting something towards healthcare of the society, then you will probably not need that type of lockdown because you will have so much of capacity that you will be able to cope. Unfortunately, that's the reality. If you have a bridge that can take, let's say, or if you have a hotel that can take 100 people, but you have a crisis and there is earthquake and you are the only hotel there, then you will have 2,000 people coming in and the hotel will collapse basically.
Yeah, and then somebody
disagrees
with us, Sanjeev, if I may say, would say, well, you cannot build a hotel for, one day I might not have to accommodate 100 people, but 100,000 people. Of course not. But, just to make that analogy.
No, absolutely. That's why I said whole of government approach. So you can have some capacity everywhere. And if there is that capacity and there is a crisis event, you can put that into action. And that's why a whole of the government approach. And I think it's important that the government and people in the society push that look, society, people are very, very important. And healthcare is a security issue now. It's not just, we are socialists, so we will keep funding people. No, healthcare is a social issue. If people are not healthy, your economy will collapse. You will have so much of social security expenses. If you have people who are not eating healthy in your society, they will develop all kinds of illnesses, diseases. So that means a lot more funding on social security, on social benefits, and all of that. So it is only prudent to make sure, you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, one could argue on the other side, well, the conflict of interest here, you can't keep a healthy society because there you have the pharma industry, you have the food industry, the huge lobby, huge tax income spinners. So one makes potentially the society sick for the other one then to make them stronger and healthy again. And it kind of feeds a nice cycle. But this is a lot of conspiracy theory behind it. I just wanted to put it in the equation. Sanjeev, we are wrapping up our conversation. It's been so much fun and so interesting. I always ask at the end of our conversation, my fabulous guests, so what are your main learnings from your journey? I mean, you've suffered pain, quite substantial pain due to family loss. You are very successful, but at the same time, very introspective. What is the definition for you of the key learnings that you would like to pass on?
So that's why I wrote this book called From the Diary of Nobody. Because, being a nobody made me a bit more freer inside my own head. So I don't imprison myself anymore. And I realized, look, I can go and build myself an extremely successful business and all of that is fantastic. But at the end of the day, how am I existing is what I ask myself. And that is the question I didn't ask 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And that question, I think people do need to ask themselves. So for me, I do want to make sure that what I am doing can be used as a reference. So, 50 years or 30, 100 years from today, somebody can look at my journey and say, okay, this is a good reference. This is a good lighthouse. Maybe that could be not a source of inspiration, but at least a reference point that people can use it and say, okay, maybe this is something that I could do. So, for me, I'm just in that process right now. Maybe after 5 years, I might think or rethink this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But right now, I'm in that journey and I'm trying to be useful to see how I can be more productive and be more useful to the society. And this might sound cliche, but whenever I am thinking out loud, I have this continuous, thought process in my head where I think, I'll consider my journey quite successful if I could just put an idea where I think, humanity should be the supreme idea, and all the other religions, the cultures, etc., should just come under the umbrella of humanity. So you could be, a religious person, but as long as you are fully subscribed to the idea of humanity, I don't think we will have so much conflict within our society.
Yeah, I think this is beautiful because you're distinguishing between human and humane. Okay, yeah. Being humane. And what I take from our conversation, to kind of put it in the nutshell, and I'm sure I'm leaving lots of bits out here, is it starts with a thought, a reflective kind of thought, which then can lead you to be critically thinking about yourself, evolving, trying to not be just a human in the kind of being human, but humane, and add value through your actions. Even if these actions are, I don't want to act with you because I'm honest, and this is what you have to expect to me. That is, for me, this is much better than to kind of play along, manipulate, and just be part of something that might be a mediocre society, even going into decadence. So this is what I take from our conversation. Is that more?
I appreciate that. That's something that I thought would be interesting to have a conversation, and really appreciate the opportunity. And let's see how people. Maybe people will react to it. Maybe you will see what sort of reaction you get from people. And I look forward to that. And good luck. Good luck.
No, absolutely. I'm very happy because our Mentoring TV community, or people that come across my channel, they are very responsive. They tend to comment, and because my guests, including you, of course, they're outspoken. They have their own ideas, and this is exactly the objective. Also, stay curious is my motto. Be open-minded. Listen maybe to other people. You don't have to endorse, but you can consider and just entertain a thought for a minute or two before you put it away, or you actually endorse it. And just to leave you and also the viewers with one screen share, I thought I wanted to share that because it is very, very, very insightful from your book. Where are we here? Okay, here we are. There we go. So let me just open the screen share. And here this is, I pulled out quite a few quotes, which I just referred to, but the last one here, I want to read out to everybody. And you called it Rebuild, and I think it really wraps up our conversation so beautifully. Rebuild. Let us rebuild, but not back to how it was. Let us build better and not the way it was. Imagine a future where anything can be. The politics you hate or the ideology you like can all exist together under the same tree. Unleash, but not your hate. Let your imagination design your fate. Create continuous diversity, more than what your eyes could ever see. We must get out of the gate before it is too late. Sitting idle and leaving it all to fate will surely be our biggest mistake. Let us fail, and yes, at times we may go off the rails, but allow us to fail some more, because that's how we will learn to soar. I know we will come back and come back strong. Let us go build the future that we all must have. The Diary of a Nobody. Sanjeev, that is...
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
I really like that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being with me here, Sanjeev. It's been a pleasure.
Pleasure. Same here. Take care. Thank you very much. And looking forward to having our coffee one-to-one very soon, hopefully.
Absolutely. Now that the vaccines are really coming our way, at least at this time of the recording, more or less at the change of the year. And thank you very much, dear Mentoring TV community, for having joined us again for a very exciting conversation, this time with Sanjeev Kumar, joining us from London. See you next time. Bye.